Welcome to the Sanity Project Podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project Podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. And our guest today is Dr. Vic. And Dr. Vic is a multi-person. He is a business mindset coach, a certified pediatric chiropractor, 3 times author, podcaster, and speaker, all on one line. He's the author of 3 books, the most recent, Decoding the Matrix, which came out in May of 2022. Dr. Vic has helped edit that out. Dr. Vic has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs learn how to create their dream life effortlessly through sharing principles of living in the quantum world. He helps business owners lead more fulfilled lives effortlessly. So, Dr. Vic, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So, first things first, why don't you define for our audience of business owners, what is quantum? What is the quantum world?
Oh, I love this. The quantum world, keep it simple, is just trying to understand how the invisible world and what creates our physical aspect of things. How does things manifest into the physical realms, and understanding this vastness of this invisible world that exists. So, instead of getting into subatomic particles and bosons and quarks and all that fun stuff, what really, when we look at the quantum world and try to have somewhat of an understanding to it, when they kept looking deeper and deeper into things, they found out that there's just this field of mass space, and they didn't have a name for it. So they called it they call it quanta. But we just energy. And this energy is what gives the physical manifestation of properties. So for an example, we can look at lead and gold, and you can look at the molecular structure and say the reason why lead shows up as lead is because of how the molecules are arranged, and then gold shows up the way it does because of how the molecules are arranged. But if we go deeper into that element, it's actually the energy that it's vibrating at, or the frequency, that gives it the representation of that showing up, that alignment to show up as lead and as gold. So that's kind of a simple way of sharing a little bit of the quantum is, without going too deep.
Well, that's interesting. I'm going, wait a minute. I lost you. I lost you at the last 4 words. So I have mass, space, energy, physical energy is what it is all about. Well, that's it. That's it. So, but how do we get people to recognize what that is? Because they need to recognize it first if you want them to focus on it. Yes?
Yes. And it's, again, what is the energy aspect of it? What is that thing what makes up energy, right? And so for humans, we have things that when it comes to things with energy, it's about consciousness. Where's our consciousness level, and what defines that? Well, your consciousness or your level of where you are is all based upon your vibration of where you are, based on what you focus on, your thoughts, and the emotions that are leading from that. So thoughts, emotions, and what you focus is going to set that vibrational standpoint. So that's how it affects us as human beings, and how it affects our world as entrepreneurs and so forth. And when it comes to either being successful, not successful, to every single experience in life, it doesn't even have to be in business. It could be relationships. It could be health, all in the premise of consciousness first. And that's where, when we look at that perspective and we come from that arena of things and how that is made up, that will determine leading forth physical stuff that we attract, what we experience in our life, and so forth.
Okay, so I'm going to take you one layer deeper, I hope, for the listeners who don't know what we're talking about. So you're in consciousness. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. How can we tell people what that is so that they can understand it, so that they can work within that framework of consciousness?
Well, we are consciousness in the essence. We don't have to what gives here's an example. What gives our body life is consciousness, right? That's it. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to hope that our heart's beating at a certain frequency, our lungs and heart are working together to make sure our body gets the proper oxygen. Those things happen automatically because of consciousness within this body. That's what governs the body to give it the work in the way it does. And so when it comes back to then, how to, again, what the question was, understanding consciousness?
Well, how can they understand it? Yes.
Yeah. So then it comes to, we've all had the effects. When I say consciousness is a thought, feeling, and where we focus. So we've all had these feelings. Think of someone that you love. Think of someone that you admire. Think of someone that you appreciate and enjoy. There is a vibration to that you'll get a feeling somewhere in you, and that's going to raise your consciousness level. So you're going to start to feel emotions of joy or bliss or something that's going to create an effect of. The same thing is true when it comes to something you dislike, a pet peeve, or maybe even using a strong word like hate. When we do that, there's a different feeling that shows up in the body, and that's the lowering of this. And this is one I try to teach a lot of my clients about, because you can try to think of this stuff, but it can get over the head very quickly. But if you can go from a feeling standpoint, you can feel that and you'll know. You can tell the difference between those two things of love and hate. And when you come from there, that is the element of understanding how you, from a consciousness level, how it plays a role or a feeling or a vibration, just trying to use different words that are used, to have that feeling, to know where you are and how you can shift and move your energy or your consciousness.
Okay, so give me a recent example of you and one of your clients on how you can shift them to their consciousness. Because, people are confused. The people that are confused are confused. The people that are on the edge, you can talk to them easier. So how do you get someone to see what their consciousness, are you talking about intuition at all?
That's massively part of it. Yes.
How so massively part of it?
Because we have this, we're so bogged down by being led by our minds and letting our mind dictate things. Like we live in an information era, right? So we forgot what it is to connect to our intuition and letting that be our compass to guide us. So like an example, for example, a lot of the work I do with clients is helping them, like I was talking about the feeling side. That's one of the ways I help them understand, like, here's the ranges of feelings. Now, what I want you to do then is when you are making choices, when you're looking at your vision or looking at a goal or making a choice in your business, you have to have that feeling show up that was related more to love. If it is, and you can feel that, you get used to where that shows up in there, that's a guidance system that's going to guide you to where you have to go. And then when they make the choices, they're like, this all ended up working out. How did this happen? I don't understand. And they're like, sometimes it can be even more, out there, like I can bring up some examples in a minute, and it's one of those things where I'm like, and they're like, I just don't understand. I said, because you're going outside your mind. You're going back into allowing for acceptance, whatever show up, rather than us thinking that this is how success should be, or this is the path it should be on, and thinking we have it all figured out with our very limited perspective, instead of being more open-minded and allowing whatever you want to call that, universe, God, Allah, life, you name it.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what the label is, but allowing that to then choose to allow you to go ahead and let that bring to you what is going to serve not just you, but the greater good for all humanity.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
Oh, good. I was going to answer the other question really quick, but if you have one, I can.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
So then it's like, how do we then, like, and here's an example. So like I had a client one time, we kept working on, except you got to focus on your energy every single day. I want you to be focusing on who that future self is and all the stuff that I'm sharing. And for 5 months, he was like, "God, I just don't, I'm struggling with this." And I said, "It's okay if you're struggling with it. You haven't been taught these things. We've been hardwired and conditioned for at least 100, 120 years about working hard, grind, hustle, all these different terminologies are being used. And I'm sharing you a different perspective." And long story short, it was about 5 months into coaching. All of a sudden, we're on a call and he goes, "I literally feel like I just woke up." And I said, "You seem pretty awake right now." And he's like, No. I mean, like, people talk about awakening and all this other stuff. I was like, "Okay, I'm with you on that. Please keep going and tell me more." And he was just like, "I feel like I've been living a dream." Like all that I've been doing in my life hasn't really been what I truly chose. I feel like there's something else in what you've been sharing about this feeling. I've been really playing with this now, and I think I'm starting to get this. It's not as hard and as complicated as it sounds. I was like, no, it's really simple. All of a sudden, 2 months later, he starts breaking records in his business. Now you may say, well, how'd that happen? Well, the thing with his is he stopped the resistance of fighting, and he let go, and he started to hyper focus and trust the process of, you know what? There's only one thing I can control, and that's how my energy every single day. Consciousness level, energy, vibration, frequency, we can call it many different terms. And he was like, from that moment, he's like, I started to understand what you meant about the being side of things and how you have to really get set in stone with that. And he goes, all I started to do was what you told me, focus on my future self. Who's that person being? Not what they're doing, not how they're thinking or the actions they're doing. It's just who they're being, right? What thoughts are they giving attention to? How are they reacting to things that are showing up in their life? And he's like, I guess got really crystal clear with that. You talk a lot about clarity, and all of a sudden I just kept focusing on that and nothing else. And records continue to break, where he continued to break records. He was over 50-60% growth per month. And then just to clarify, this is not someone who's new in business. We're looking at 16 to 17 years in business. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where it was just, it can happen that quick. A couple months later, all of a sudden he gets it and moves on. Another client, same way. 3 months into coaching, she was a little bit more open to these kind of things. And all of a sudden there was a partnership deal that could have happened that was going to profit her an extra, maybe $120,000 roughly, just from the partnership, not doing anything different. And it was one of those things where it all aligned and it all worked out to where perfect person, it just came out of nowhere. And she's like, I feel, again, coming back to that feeling, I feel like this is something I should entertain, because the person presented to her.
Sure.
I said, okay, we did some stuff. And all of a sudden I had to work out the numbers just to make sure we mapped everything out. And all of a sudden she was just like, this feels right. And wow, this can really work out. Now, 6 months later, it's like, yeah, this is working out almost exactly as planned. But it came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you're making more money. You didn't have to really do anything for it. You did in a certain degree, but that's the beauty of stepping into this quantum realm, is because we're opening the door to infinite potential or infinite possibilities rather than fixed possibilities.
Yes. I'm listening to this, and I'm of course thinking of myself, because, I practice, I pay attention before I get out of bed. I talk to whoever's sitting on my bed. It's a combination of people. I have a committee of 6. And, what do I do today? Do I get out of bed? Do I do this? Do I do that? What are my tasks? Because I don't want to think about it. I know this sounds weird, but maybe not to you. I don't want to think about what I have to do aside from what I have to do. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And it's like, it just relieves me of so much stress. And it's something that anybody can do, except they don't trust the voice they hear. And I hear the voice. Some people have the feeling, I hear the voice. And when the voice comes into it, there's nothing to it for me. It's like, it can't be this easy. And it is.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful. And when you're playing it, like I talk a lot about effortless success, and man, I'll tell you, saying that word effortless in business world, it's amazing how many people think you're selling snake oil. But when you come in from the realm of quantum and energy, right? Let's say you want to have a 7-figure business, or 8-figure, 9-figure, 10-figure, it doesn't matter, or even 6, it doesn't matter. But when you focus in and hone that energy in, then all of a sudden there's going to come a point in time. And I always say this, you don't have to think, you don't have to try to figure anything out. There's something called the universal law called the law of inspired action. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean you're not going to do any effort, but what it means is that, like for me, I only take action when I feel inspired.
Right.
And I've written 3 books. All those books came from inspired action. It wasn't like I was choosing it or planning it out or anything. Same thing with a lot of other stuff that I do. And what happens is, because when you're in that state of that vibration, it's called the law of vibration, and you only can experience whatever the vibration of where you are, nothing above it or below it, only at that frequency. Kind of like when you're playing with a radio, to go into a radio station, you have to tune in to specifically that radio station to get that music.
Right.
Then when you hone into that, the law of attraction follows, because like attracts like, and it's going to go ahead and pull towards you. And all of a sudden you get this idea, or you get this, you feel like you have to work on this, or you have to create this, or you got to redo this, whatever that may be. It'll show up in many ways, but also not only just taking action or taking next steps you have to focus on, but it's also people, circumstances, situations are going to help you evolve to get to where you want to get to. And then all of a sudden the law of manifestation comes in, which is the invisible to the visible. You start to see it in your physical realm. Mm-hmm. And this is something that is very hard for a lot of people to break away from, because again, I love how you said they don't trust that inner voice. We all have it. We all have a voice
Sure.
or a feeling or something. And we just been so it's like to be easier to and I don't say it's easier, because I think listening to your voice is way easier than using the mind. But we think it's, from an information standpoint, it's just easier to do that instead of realizing how much power we really have. Because when you listen, like when you're listening to your inner voice, that is what you need to do. That's going to help serve you no matter what it goes against. Like even in my business, in my chiropractic office, I went against some of the advice to some of the best chiropractors in the profession, and what was doing, family wellness chiropractors or pediatric chiropractor, what they told you, what you have to do to be successful. It wasn't that I had an ego to try to prove them wrong. I just had a burning I followed them for 5 years and it worked out well, but I had this feeling inside me that was like a fire and I couldn't let it go, that kept saying, you dictate your success. You don't follow what others do. You dictate your success. If you like this, continue. If you don't, then you choose what success is, define it. And then from there, you will have your success. And I followed that path, and literally I got to choose the hours of what I wanted to work. It went against a lot of business advice, and it worked out very well for me.
Yeah, my message is always, you're in charge. You are in charge. So whatever comes up to you, what we're knocking on the door and the window for you is X, and you can choose or not choose. And if you don't choose, c'est la vie. And if you do choose, wow. And that's kind of where it's at. I've been doing similar, aligned work with myself, such as yourself. And I've been able to incorporate it in my work with my clients, because I have no choice. I mean, it's like, what did somebody say? A little spicy there. And, they just don't want to hear it or whatever. And you just, then I just not walk away, but I pull back, a little bit, not much. They still get the source. So how can we have other people in the world in the same lane with us so that we can change the world?
I love that. So it's understanding that about taking our power back and stop giving it away so much. We've been indoctrined for who knows how long now about happy, right? We talk about happiness, right? And what makes us happy. And when you think about it, we're always looking outside ourselves for that. Or when I'm at this level of success, then this. Or if I have this one, I just have this extra, this one big client, that it'll all work out. And we keep looking outside ourselves rather than us being the source. Even when it comes to like work of like that I teach with like law of attraction stuff and whatnot, we give the power, even people who practice this stuff give the power to the future self rather than themselves, because we go, this is who I'm going to be in the future. This is what I'm going to have. This is what I'm going to do. And they get all excited. And I said, who has the power of your emotions right there? Is it your future self, or is it you choosing those feelings? And what I mean by taking your power back and whatnot, I want you to remember, if you can, back to when we were all 3-4-year-old children. If you can't remember, go hang around with a 3-4-year-old. This is one of the most beautiful times when it comes from a place of two things. One, their brain is at peak. They're at their peak imagination state right there at around that time frame. The other thing about a 3-4-year-old is they choose what they love to do, and they don't care about anyone else or what they think or anything along those lines. You gotta have a tea party. It's amazing. And I love that. And that's how we should be. I don't like the word should, but I understand. I have to use it here. or I should say that is what our natural instinct is, to just choose what we love to do and just do it without being conditioned, without being programmed or creating constructs of what we should be doing, rather than doing what we love and returning back to that. That is, I believe, when we start to go back and ask that question, what do I truly love? What wakes me up? What excites me? What can I do that I would do for absolutely for free, because what I get from it is so rewarding, that I can just do it all the time and never stop. You answer those questions. This is when we start to pull our power back and start to choose what it is we want to truly experience, what matters to our heart, and aligning to those principles. But it's one thing I say often to my clients: my whole job is to make you a 3-4-year-old again, but we're gonna skip out on the emotional maturity. We're gonna make sure we keep you at where you are with that. But everything else, I want to get you there, because if I can get you to choose what you love and like really fires you up, really gets you excited, this is where we see people like this in the world, where they just constantly are like doing, and they're never tired. They're never exhausted, no matter how much they do. And they don't need motivation, because motivation is doing something that you need some outside input to do something you don't want to do. Instead, it's inspiration. And this is when we get to learn to tap back in spirit, because that's what inspire means. And when we're tapping back into that source, that's our consciousness, that's infinite source energy. Now, all of a sudden, when we go and do, it just keeps feeding us and inspires us more. And that's where I believe when we can get people to that point, that changes the world. It's going to change everything, because your consciousness is raising up, and you're going to start to influence and be and affecting the people around you. And then what it does is it allows them, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it gives them that opportunity to do the same thing, energetically speaking. And then from there, that creates a ripple effect, and we start to change the whole entire world by just doing that.
Yeah, I'm wondering when, probably 20 more years before something significant occurs. At least that's what I see. Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, humanity, unfortunately, the way humans work in today in society still is we have to have some sort of tragedy, trauma. We got to be sick and tired. We have to be, we have to fall to our knees before we make change. And I think we have to, instead of waiting for being so reactive, and I've learned all this from just being a chiropractor, of how reactive we are when it comes to our health. We have to be proactive on all things and learn to choose and say, this is what I'm going to choose to experience, and this is what I'm going to, move towards, and do that instead of like, oh, I'm only doing like, oh, doctor said I went to get some blood work, and all of a sudden I have this going on, that going on. Let's say the standard, high blood pressure, triglycerides, cholesterol, and my sugar's high. Well, and he says I got to lose some weight. All right, I got to get into a workout program. I got to start doing this. Instead, it's like, can start doing that now, regardless if you have something or not, right? Start, it's like they always say, you want to be a lifelong learner. Why? Because you're going to constantly be learning and improving. Neurologically, everything is neuroscience. Neuroscience at the end of the day, the more you keep reinforcing the habits that you've developed, long term will benefit you, because you'll never forget them. You'll never lose them. The same thing, like if you worked out all your life, eventually there's going to come a point where, but as long as you keep it up, the muscles can stay there. There comes a point, who knows when that is, your body just starts to break down, and it's breaking down. It's not going to hold as long, but you can still keep going at it. You can slow that process down. But the key point I'm trying to make is that as long as you do maintaining those kind of things, you have longevity in the long run, and it's not being reactive. And I think that's another thing in just every aspect of life. If we can come from a place of being proactive, that's again stepping back into our power, choosing. I'm not saying it's always going to work out for you. There may be hiccups that are going to come along the road. That's just part of life. But it gives you those opportunities then to that all the work that you've been doing, you don't get a setback. So like if a recession comes and you've been really focusing on growth and strategy all this time and not reacting and keeping it, keeping a mindset like, I always say you want to make decisions when you have lean months. That's always the best way. You always think that you're in lean months when you make decisions in business. And if you've been practicing that all the time, when recession comes, you're going to sit and go, that's fine. We can take a hit. We have this, we have that. We're secure. It's not fun, but we'll be okay. Where if you haven't been doing that, and all of a sudden here, a recession may be coming, or it is, and that may affect your business. And all of a sudden you're going, oh yeah, this is not good. Oh my goodness, this is not going to be great for me. It's reactive. And so it plays an effect on every aspect.
And panicky. And when you get to panic, that's where the problems come in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you gotta be, the whole thing is it's so easy to be steady in what you're doing. Just so easy. There's no need for panic, no need for the ego to come up and take over. You are still in charge. Joanne, you're in charge. And, you know, you just do what you need to do. And the rest is what is it, Joanne? What is it? It's unnecessary. You know, the worrying, the screeching, the hollering. I mean, I have people now going, but the recession, but the this, but the that. I says, ignore it. Just totally ignore it. And then stay where you're successful. Stay where you're healthy. Who knows?
I couldn't agree with you more there, because what we focus on expands, and it affects two things. I mean, when people, because I have clients worrying about the same thing, and I'm like, stop focusing on the recession. And they're like, well, doc, you know, I gotta be I said, no, you don't. I said, no. Here's what you're doing. I'm like, the more you put energy into the recession, the more you're going to create a recession, and the depths of how it's going to affect things. And second part of that is you're going to be a part of that recession and the negative effects with whoever is the power of influence with in that aspect who are sharing and, pumping that stuff out there. You'll be affected whatever stories that they're saying, because you're buying into it. And so I'm like, all you have to do is choose a different outcome. How are you going to respond? I mean, I created my business in 2010 at the end of the Great Recession we had back then. And everyone's like, you shouldn't do that. Chiropractors are working in groups now. Things are tough right now. And I was just like, listen, that's your limiting belief. I'm not going to hold on to that. Mm-mm. Like, I'm going to go out there, and if it's a bumpy road, so be it. I don't expect it to be smooth, but at the same token, I'm going to go out, and I know what I want to create for myself. And I'm going to at least go all in and try to do that. And it worked out. And one of the things I always tell my clients, and I share this a lot too, is still to this day, the highest percentage of millionaires ever created was during the Great Depression. Think about that for a second. When people talk about the Great Depression may come back, and oh my goodness, the highest percentage of millionaires ever created was during the Great Depression. Look at COVID when pandemic came on. Lockdowns kicked in. Billionaires, they increased their net worth by 56%.
Oh my God, I know.
Right? So this, and when I'm sharing, and I share this in my book, my latest book, but it's one of those things where I tell people all the time, well, why is that happening for them and not happening for you? Well, because they're billionaires, because they control. I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It may be some parts, but I'm like, it's their focus. What are they putting their energy towards? Now, some of them had businesses that really benefited from the pandemic based on how things changed. And I'm like, that could be true too. But again, everything's energy at the end of the day. You always have to remember that energy is always at the end of the day, everything's all energy. And so it's the law of vibration that plays the role. And so they can't experience that unless they're vibing there. And their focus and what they were giving their attention to and the reality that they wanted to see come out of it was not loss, scarcity, those things. They saw it in a different realm. And that's why I think their total billionaires net worth was they grew by like almost, I think $615 billion in that short period of time. And so it's one of those things that, again, what we focus on expands. So focus on a reality of what you want to have instead of what the influencers, media, or whatever are telling you. Because at the end of the day, your brain can't tell the difference of what you see with your own physical eyes and what you see with your mind's eye and your imagination. It can't tell the difference. It doesn't know what's true and what's not. So you can imagine a reality. Let's say a recession's coming. Let's say it's going to be one of the worst ones we ever had. But if you go in your mind and every day you say, no, this is what my reality is. This is what I see happening for me. This is how I'm going to expand. This is how I'm going to do this. This is what I see. And I'm going to put my focus there. Well, your brain's going to think that's real. And so all of a sudden, there's some principles in the brain that will start to say, well, this is what you've been saying is true. Well, we're going to start pointing it out for you now to show that to you. And now it reinforces that. And all of a sudden, you're going to have that energy vibe there, and you're going to have that type of experience rather than what other people are experiencing.
Okay, there you are, people. I don't know what more could be said to you, the listeners, than what Dr. Vic, somehow I'm calling him Dr. Vic, is promoting, because this is a truth, and you have to trust the truth, and then you have to trust yourself, because this is really all up to you. There's nobody else. I want to thank you for being here today, because this has been hopefully beneficial to the listeners who I probably have mindset, etc., every third or fourth podcast. So I'm into making it happen in my own little way just by giving this information. But this is the clearest information on quantum and quantum physics that I've heard in a long time. So I want to thank you for being here today. And that's it.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thanks for having me.
I'm grateful that you were here. And something just happened to my computer. That's all right. Ignore it. Well, the thing of it is I can't do anything about it. And blah, 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 blah. Edit, edit, edit. I appreciate you being here. And I want to remind my listeners to listen to this podcast again with a pen and paper and take notes, because you're not going to remember everything that Vic Manzo Jr. has just told you. You won't. It's impossible. You could absorb it psychically, but you won't remember the words. And some of you need the words. So listen to this again, take a pen and paper and take notes, because that's the way we do it here on the Sanity Project Podcast. Nice to have you here, Dr. Vic, and we'll talk soon. Hello?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know if that was the ending, so I was like, it sounded so nice. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And then when this comes out, just let me know. I'll get that out there on my social media and so forth.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project Podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.